Ciao, I'm Luca, an Android engineer working on native mobile app since Android KitKat. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're already subscribed, welcome back. Android Studio LadyBug is still in the preview channel, but we're already able to use it. And in today's video, we're taking a look at one of the more exciting features that it will allow us to use. Gemini has been embedded in our IDE for a while now, since Android Studio Koala was announced at Google I/O this year, but with limited capabilities. Android Studio Koala in the Gemini submenu only allows for explain code and suggest improvement. It can't really change your code. Instead, in Android Studio LadyBug, if we select a bunch of code and we open the Gemini submenu, we can see that we have transform selected code, document function check permission, comment code, and then the same to as in Android Studio Koala, explain code and suggest improvements. For today's video, I've asked ChatGPT to come up with 3 code samples that are messy, not really understandable, and can be improved in several ways. Without me asking, ChatGPT also came up with the expected solution from Gemini. So in today's video, I'm going to throw this code to Gemini, which is bundled inside Android Studio LadyBug, and see what it can do to improve the code, and also how close ChatGPT was in guessing what Gemini would come up with when changing our code base. I'll start with a sample that is purposely messy with a lot of nested if. As you can see here, we have 3 if statement and then a lot of also more nested things. We have a data class for the user, and then down below we have the expected result from ChatGPT. So this function here should just check for the permission of a user and return whatever the user has: full access, admin access, read, write, or no access at all. And if the user is null, it will return an invalid user. So let's select the entire function, come up with Gemini transform selected code. And for the Gemini, when you click on select transform code, you need to tell Gemini how to transform the selected code. So I'll go with the function is messy and has a lot of nested checks. Simplify the function and make it more readable. As soon as you do it, there will be a background task which is sending the query. The query is sent to Gemini, and then we can see that we are shown with what Gemini come out with, and we can select or discard the things. So we're gonna select all of them, close this window, and so we now have a check permission that uses a when statement and check for the user being null, admin and full access, only admin. And so this is what Gemini came up with. Now I'll want to go with a side-by-side with what Gemini came up with and what ChatGPT expected Gemini to come up with. So I can see that they both started with a return when, and the first check that they do is if the user is null. They then both check if it's admin and full access, and they grant full access. Otherwise, just admin, has read, has write, and then with an else, no access granted. So this time around, Gemini did what ChatGPT expected, and I have to say that the transformation is acceptable, but nothing really that even a junior developer couldn't do. But let's go ahead and get up the second example here. So this function has really poor naming, and it's supposed to calculate a discounted price with starting from the price and the quantity to be discounted for. So let's go ahead again and come up with Gemini and transform selected code, and the prompt this time will be this function is supposed to calculate the discount for a product, but it's almost impossible to understand. Let's see what Gemini comes up with. And after a while, we get a changed name on the function. So it calculates a discounted price, and then it renames the total price as well, and then return the total price minus 10. So let's accept everything and let's confront. So ChatGPT actually guessed perfectly what Gemini would come up with in the resolution of this prompt and the previous code. This is impressive from ChatGPT and I guess expected from Gemini then. But now let's move to the last piece of code that I want to submit to Gemini, and it's a factorial function that calculates the factorial of a number. And as you can see, it makes a lot of things that it's not supposed to do with a performant and well-written factorial function. So let's select everything, go to Gemini, and transform selected code. This should calculate the factorial of a number, but it's not well written nor performant. Make it so. And after a while, after the query has been sent and processed, we get some refactoring. So let's see what Gemini came up with. So if factorial is minor than 0 in regular argument exception, factorial is not defined for negative numbers, and that's a good thing. And then if we return 1 if n is 0, otherwise n multiplied by factorial of n minus 1. So the expected result from ChatGPT was basically the same thing without the check of n being minor than 0. And that's a good additional from Gemini, in my opinion, which ChatGPT didn't consider. It actually would break providing a negative integer in the expected result from ChatGPT, and it wouldn't with the Gemini proposed solution, which is good. One last thing I want to test Gemini with, it's a composable function. We all know that Android nowadays is mostly composable and stuff. So I want to see how Gemini can handle a composable function which is not really well written and uses some useless components where it should use better components. So we have a profile card, we have a follow status, a row which contains just a column. So I would say that maybe one of them could go. And then we have a column with an image, a spacer, a text, a spacer, and a button. And these spacer, in my opinion, are useless because we can use paddings in the function, in the other function, to add some spacing. So let's go with Gemini, transform selected code, and this composable function is not well written. It uses spacers instead of paddings. Make it more readable and performant as well. And let's send the query and see what Gemini come up with this prompt. This is taking a little bit longer, but here we are. First of all, the profile card composable function, which was already highlighted from the IDE, should be with capital letters, so it's good. Then it renames follow status with is following and uses by remember instead of equals remember, which is good. Then it also added an alignment center vertically. And then we don't have a column anymore, but we have the image inside the row. Column, it did remove the spacer and added padding instead of spacer. The one thing that I've noticed though is that it moved the image outside of the column and it's just in a row. So the image is now used in another way from how it was used before, because it was everything inside a column first. Now we have an image and on the side a column with text and everything else. Maybe this means that we should pay more and more attention to what Gemini make with our composable function, because yeah, this row was just an empty container for the column before, and the image was inside of the column, so we would have had the image, the text, and the button. Right now we have the image and then the text and the button. So yeah, the layout has changed a bit, but the code is actually written in a better way. It also added some comments, and here I also once again have the expected after refactoring from ChatGPT. So it has the vertical alignment. It did the same thing here for the by remember, and it actually ChatGPT also expected Gemini to move the image outside of the column and provide some padding instead of using spacers. This is amazing how ChatGPT can guess what Gemini would do in a refactoring. I guess that the same could apply from Gemini Web if we ask Gemini to give us some code that ChatGPT needs to refactor. So what do you think about what Gemini did to our code today? I think it was quite impressive. Nothing outstanding and nothing that will replace any developer in the close future, but it's getting there. It turned messy and inefficient code and hard to read code into something more readable and maintainable and understandable. Of course, it's not perfect and it might not catch every possible improvement in any given code, but it's definitely a powerful tool to rely on and to check before actually releasing to production our code bases. Do you think you'll be using this feature as soon as Android Studio LadyBug has been officially released, or are you already using it using the pre-release channel of Android Studio? Let me know down in the comment if you're already working with it, if you plan to work with it, or if you don't think it will actually improve any of your day-to-day programming skills. That's it for today's video. Thanks again for joining me, and if you liked the video, please consider giving it a like and clicking the subscribe button below. And till the next time, peace.